Hello friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story where OP finds herself caught between a wardrobe malfunction and a manager who insists on enforcing rules to the letter. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. You really want me to go home? Okay, you lose a client. So this is a funny story where I know I wasn't exactly in the right, but it was still malicious compliance. I'm a software engineer and I'm a female. So as you can imagine, I'm always either the only or one of the very few non-males in the team. This MC's from a previous job of mine. I was the primary SWE, software engineer, on a project. One random Wednesday, yes, I remember the day of the week, we had a meeting scheduled with the client. This was a large company, and the client was in a different country, so the meeting was scheduled virtually. Now, if you know anything about me, I'm a bit of a promiscuous gal, and I guess this day I was just being a bit silly and wore a dress that was a teeny tiny bit too short. At lunch, I was told by my manager that someone had complained and I needed to go home and change. I knew I was wrong and immediately apologized, but I brought up the meeting I had coming up. Now, as per company policy, we couldn't take any company equipment home unless we were the scheduled on-call or unless we had permission. I could not take this call from home without the company laptop. I needed to demo something, and I knew none of the other engineers on my team could manage the demo. Yes, they knew how it worked, but no one knew it as well as me, and they had to refer to manuals to do the demo and answer questions, which is not a great presentation for the client. So I offered two options. I get to take the company laptop home for the night. I sit in one of the conference rooms for the next hour and a half and then join the meeting from that room. I was told neither was an option. I either had to go home and then return after changing, or go home and join the call via a telephone and let a teammate present. I presented my arguments, and my manager then told me that I should change and come back. There's no way I was doing that, mainly because it would take too long. I made that clear, so he offered that I could take the next off out of my unlimited medical leave if I came back because he knew how important the client was. I once again suggested I take the company laptop home. I'd done it multiple times when I was on call, so it wasn't a trust issue. He said, no, that's only when you cannot take a call from the office. I gave one more shot to explaining that even if I went home and left right away, I would miss most of the call, but he didn't care. He said he'd take care of the call until I reached. I said okay and put in the next day off along with an email confirming what we had discussed and then headed home. I obviously was not in a rush. I got home, changed, and went back to the office. As soon as I left home, I started receiving frantic calls asking where I was. I explained that it would take me 45 minutes to reach the office if traffic allowed, and they should start the call. Bottom line, no one was prepared. Everyone freaked out and made a mess of the presentation. The client was unimpressed and did not move forward with any further projects. So yes, I messed up, but I was willing to make up for it. He didn't listen to me and chose to dismiss my statements, so I did exactly what he wanted. Could I have stopped at a mall 5 minutes away and picked up leggings? Yes. Did I choose to follow his instructions by the letter? Yes. Edit. I want to clarify that the problem was not with my outfit being too short for the meeting. If the meeting had happened before the complaint reached my manager, I'd have gone home and taken the L on the half day. But the problem came because I had to attend the meeting and they had to enforce their punishment on me. I forgot to put the outcome. The manager did try to blame me, but I simply reminded him that I had told him about the issue and emailed him the discussion of our meeting. I had explicitly told him this would happen if he sent me home to change, but he said he'd handle it. He wasn't that bad of a person to say that didn't happen, so he simply used that to make our lives harder about everyone being fully involved in all projects, which meant a lot more meetings and a lot less work getting done. So I quit not much longer, and no, multiple others did because it was affecting bonuses too. This happens when the rules are more important than the purpose they serve. Idiots deserve what they get. And our second story. Demand that your money be moved? Don't let me tell you that this is a bad idea. Sure. Some of you might recall that financial crisis that happened a bit back, circa 2008-ish. At the time, I was working in a call center for retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. For any non-Americans, these are plans from your employer where you can contribute a portion of your salary and usually they'll also contribute something as well to save for retirement. This is probably the biggest way that Americans save for the end. As the account holder, you have control over how the money is invested, usually from a small selection of different mutual funds. Also about the call center, I had some experience, I knew what I was talking about, and was able to speak with confidence in my voice. Therefore, I was on the escalated line. This is reserved for the people who want to talk to the manager. I was not a manager, but I and others like me got these calls. In some rare cases, we actually fixed a problem, but more often than not, just told the customer the same thing they had just heard from the first rep, only with that level of confidence. Then they hung up as a happy customer. We also had the ability to review previous calls to the center. So one day in April of 2009, an irate client was transferred to me. He'd just gotten his quarterly financial statement showing that he was invested in several different funds that were affected by the stock market. His complaint was that he had called a month earlier to request that his stock market-based investments be moved to something more stable and less risky. At that time, the news was all doom and gloom, leading people to make majorly ill-informed financial decisions. This didn't happen. As I reviewed the transaction history on his account, I confirmed that whoever he had spoken with previously had only redirected new contributions into stable funds, but had made no change to any existing balance. I told the gentleman that I could review the call, and if our rep had made a mistake, adhere to his wishes, and then tried to say something else but was quickly cut off. Yes, review that call. I want my money out of the market. I tried to say something like, okay, but sir, only to be cut off again. This was not a man thing with a small account balance. At the time, it was $500K plus, meaning that at the beginning of the crisis, he probably had around $1 million in his account. I reviewed the call, and yes, our rep had made a mistake. I went through the process to retroactively conduct his requested transactions. The rep got a negative mark on his record for making a mistake, but the customer really got the short end. For those that don't know, the low point in the market was in early March of that year. Many stocks and markets rebounded enormously and very quickly. What I wanted to tell the guy was something like, Fund A is up 28% since the day you made that call, Fund B is up 32%, and so on. But as he didn't give me the chance to tell him to think about his request, well, that's why I'm posting here. As my company had to backdate his transactions, he instantly lost about $150K in his account and missed out on the boom. Of course, he called later to complain, but even after our mistake, we'd done exactly as he'd asked. I hope he's enjoying his retirement. Edit for my haters. Let me simplify the situation a bit. In March, dude sees that his balance is around $350K, a big paper loss from a high of $900K or more exactly 18 months earlier. Wants to panic sell, calls and instructs a rep to transfer to a stable fund one day removed from the market low. Rep mishandles transaction. A month later, his account's up to $500K, tells me to review his original request and make sure bad things happen to that rep. Doesn't allow me to explain why this may not be a good idea and ask him to reconsider. Has original request granted and account balance is now back at $350K. People need to remember that for the most part, those gains or losses are only imaginary until it comes time to cash them in. And our next story. My neighbor wants $75,000. So I hired a company to take down some trees and clean up the side yard of my property that was close to my neighbor's property line. Back in November 2022, when I first moved in, I had a verbal confrontation with my neighbor where we discussed the tree situation. He mentioned that I could trim the tree and even take it down from 26 feet to about 8 feet if needed. With that in mind, I hired a contractor to do the job and was very clear with them about staying within 3 feet of the property line. I specifically instructed them to take down the tree whose branches were hitting my roof and causing damage, along with a few others that were close to my fence. However, before I could catch him, the tree cutter went one tree too far and ended up taking down a tree that was clearly on my neighbor's property. There was nothing I could do to stop it in time. To give some context, 2 weeks before the job was set to take place, I sent my neighbors a note informing them of the scheduled work and requested that they contact me to finalize the details. The incident happened in August 2023, and in September, my neighbor approached me about the damage. He was understandably upset, especially since he'd been on an extended business trip and came back to find one of his trees gone. He accused me of trespassing and maliciously cutting down his tree and demanded $75,000 in damages, citing Massachusetts law that allows for triple damages in certain cases. However, I questioned his math because the replacement value of the tree was at most $2,000, which would amount to $6,000 even with the triple damages rule. I offered to cover the cost of a landscaper to fix the situation and do something nice to make up for the mistake, but he refused. He insisted on the $75,000 and even threatened to put a lien on my house to get the money. Since I just bought the house, I told him that no bank would put a lien on my property over one tree. Fast forward to March 2024, and it turns out my neighbor filed a claim with his insurance company. I passed the matter on to my insurance, thinking it was a straightforward accident on my part, not malicious. After reviewing the situation, my insurance company determined that they would pay out $5,000 in estimated damages, which was the bill I received. I wasn't thrilled about paying it, but at least the matter seemed resolved. Then I received an email from my insurance company saying they were not pursuing the matter further. Given how irate my neighbor was, this made me suspicious. Now I'm worried that he might try to sue me for $15,000 under the triple damages rule. I feel like I have no choice but to defend myself against what I believe is just a money grab. This was an accident, not done out of spite, and I just want the whole thing to be over. As things stand, I'm ready to fight back if he tries to take this further. I have all the documentation and communication showing that I acted in good faith, and I'm not about to let him take advantage of an honest mistake. And our last story. HOA sues me to destroy my pool. Me and my two sisters inherited this property from our grandparents. It was their rental property. We demolished and rebuilt everything from scratch for ourselves to use as the main home for our family. We built a pool and a sauna. We live here now. During construction, the HOA president visited me and told us that our design violates HOA's renovation guidelines. He also said that the pool and sauna are violations of the bylaws. I reminded him that we're not members of the HOA and have no interest in joining. In the last 6 months, we've received numerous letters from the HOA either compelling us to join or inform us of our infractions. They're either about the pool, about the fact that we have 3 cars, or that we're not a single family. Apparently, brothers and sisters are not family now, according to this HOA. We also received letters saying that if we join the HOA, the fees will be waived for the next 5 years. This last week, though, the president brought us a form showing that there has been 45 signatures by the neighbors saying our way of life and our non-compliance with the HOA bylaws has significantly devalued their properties and has caused them stress, and they would want us to become a member. The president says this is enough to get a court order requiring us to become a member. He says the neighbors will be willing to testify in court as well. He says to avoid the legal fees on both our parts, he's willing to give us the 5-year waiver of the fees. First, I have no intention of joining this HOA. They've proven themselves to be exactly the type of HOA to not want to be associated with. Second, they said that a court can order us to join a HOA. I'm 100% confident we're not a member. We had our lawyer check that out when we were dealing with the paperwork needed for the demolishing. My grandfather bought this place before this HOA existed, and he was the most anti-HOA person in the world. Now I see for good reason. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.